Do you need to shoot on film to make your images look filmic? I don't know. I mean, I think maybe you do. What makes something look filmic? It's a word that gets kicked around a lot in videos and online, people talking about, how can you achieve this look using modern tools, accessible stuff and the resources that they kind of have available to them, which is a tool set that has greatly expanded in the past 10 years, past 5 years. But when you watch your favorite films, you got to know that it's not just the medium that they were creating in. It's the elements that are happening on the screen and the performances, stuff that is all too often forgotten when I think people get obsessed about the tech side. And even now when people are talking about new filmmaking equipment, so much of it is in the context of, what's the sharpest, most high resolution, how can you get the biggest technological image so you can kick all your decisions down later. And I really don't think that's the best way to create. I think there's a lot of value in taking the intentionality of film shooting and trying to bring that to your work. So here's a few things that I feel like I've learned, making films and all different kinds of commercials and projects over the past 15 years. And they're basic and simple, but this is like where you start and the foundation comes from. So the first one is the way that you use shadows to tell the story. I think early on, there's always, you tend to overlight things because you either want to be really clever or, you're worried that something is going to be too dark. As you get more experience, you're not as worried about the technical side of capturing the image. Like, is it bright enough? Is it dark enough? Because you have tools that you use that help you out. But also, I think if you have, some monitors that you trust, you can get a feel, build your own kind of look, and you can kind of feel like you achieve the look while you're there. So, you don't worry too much as long as you know that it's going to have a good post-processing. I actually saw a video the other day with Darius Kanji, who was in an interview situation, and he kind of made them turn all the lights off, and he built it from the ground up, which is funny because obviously when you're shooting, a commercial interview or, a brand film or something like that, you're working within the constraints, even news journalism, you're not trying to make it look cinematic or filmic, but he starts moving the lights around and then he looks different on camera, I think that's where it's actually easier to start from less. And then as you build the image, think about where you kind of want the light to intentionally be and using the negative side really more for your lighting. Like if you take a look at some of the great movies and you look at those references and samples, you'll see that, they're leaning into the shadow side. Now, obviously with film, things tend to get a little bit darker. So that's just like a necessary byproduct, but you can definitely achieve it with digital too, if you sort of think through it and you sometimes you need to shine a little bit of light, but generally if you can shape it and make it have some more dimension, that's, ideal. Once you start saying things like this, you kind of can't unsee it. And I think that's when you start to become, you start to think about, how films are made, cinematography, and that's how you start getting sucked into trying to make some of this stuff yourself. If you're new here, thanks for coming by. I just want to say my name's Remzi Atassi. I'm a filmmaker. I make videos about the art and the business and the tech side of filmmaking, living as a creator in the modern world. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, please subscribe. The second is creating a cohesive visual philosophy in whatever it is that you're making, even if it's a commercial. One of the most filmic things is color, and when you look at even film stocks, it's about, did they bias this color or that? But so much of that comes from the physical things that you're shooting. And so just being a little bit more intentional about the color. It could be as simple as the things that people are wearing in the space that they're in, if you can shape and control the environment more, all the better, like being able to be in scenarios where you can contrive a look and do that versus just working with whatever you have in front of you. It's always going to be a little bit more intentional. And I think there's always value in that. And then thinking about it from the context of color as in, what are you trying to convey? Again, even on a more commercial project, thinking about things like this will really improve the overall quality of your work. Some of the masters of color, Wong Kar-wai, I got a video I'm making about him because just his use of color specifically to kind of tell the story, I think is amazing and inspiring. And it comes from intentionality. So I do build some looks too. If you're interested in those, they are linked in the description. There's 10 of them for free. Some of them are based on some of my favorite films. And if you want to buy the overlays and the power grades, I do sell those on my website and the link is in the description. As I've started building more of these looks on my own and trying to, kind of look at color that way, it also is really important in the post part of the process. So it's not just production design, but it's more like the creative unifying concept of color and how you use it, starting with your production design, what you create, how it goes into the lens, you know, and then all the way to the finishing. And it's so tricky because people take footage from us. If you're a cinematographer, they take your footage all the time, and you don't really have an opportunity to do what you want with it. Then you see it, you know, down the road, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like what they did with it. But all the same, the only way to get the most out of cameras these days is to wait for the look to hit in post. So I think the more you can be involved with that, or going and taking and doing your own color, which is what we do here, that can go a really long way. The third one is depth, and not just aperture, but how you actually use the space and the lens to really focus on what you're trying to accomplish. Depth is great. The ability for shallow focus and to be able to just, you know, knock out the background in every scenario is really helpful, but I don't know if that's always the way to get the most filmic look. I think, you know, especially if you're making something kind of narrative, you want to be thinking about how you're going to situate people within the, you know, within the frame, and that's more of a creative decision. And that's something that I think is a lot different than, you know, commercial stuff. Like, I do a bit of both. I probably do more commercials, you know, than narrative. I do more of my own narrative stuff. So I'm not working on it every single day, but I do think that is like when you're working on these narrative sets, you're kind of always being unique and solving interesting challenges of the visualization. Whereas a lot of times when you're just shooting, you know, commercials or content or whatever, it's really more about just trying to communicate your message. But I think one thing you can do is try and, you know, stop down a little bit, shape the light a little bit more in the space versus just, you know, going wide open on everything, which we all do from time to time. And these lenses, you know, this one's wide open right now. They tend to look pretty good when they're wide open. I do think when it comes to dimensionality, it's not just about the aperture. I think lenses do contribute a lot in this as well. You know, you hear people talk about, and it's a cliche, they talk about, you know, the 3D look of certain things. I don't think it's that it makes it look more 3D. I just think that it renders the stuff in the background in unique and kind of weird ways. Vintage lenses are cool for this, or trying to find lenses that have some more character. And the last thing, which you often see overdone, but also is a really helpful tool and has come such a long way, is just moving the camera around. I mean, the cameras now, they have, you know, IBIS and all of these like assists. So even if you're on a gimbal, you know, using these, I find sometimes makes it feel just like insanely smooth. It's pretty crazy how much we're able to just keep it like that. But I do think there's value in, you know, being a little more frenetic or thinking about how the camera is moving versus you're just kind of floating through an environment. I can't really call it an overuse on the gimbals because I think people were always trying to find creative ways to move the camera. Now it's like everything is more accessible and easier than ever. So it becomes more about, you know, using it with intention. Where you might even find the super move is if you do all these things and you still shoot on film. It's true, shooting on film is gonna give you a filmic image. It does bring a lot of natural character to it. I know people have been having this debate on the other videos, which is fun to see. To me, I still do definitely love shooting on film, and I think I'm gonna be doing more of it soon, just because I enjoy the process. But it's funny to see how passionate people are about one or the other, and you know, it makes a lot of sense. So these are, I think, a few things, even if you're just making, you know, commercials or brand films or whatever, thinking about some of these things will maybe get you thinking about your next project with some more intentionality, how you can approach it a little bit different than you have in the past, and try to make some cool images. I like shooting on film. I like making things that look cinematic or filmic or whatever you want to call it, and I like talking about it. So that's kind of the purpose of these film-focused videos on the channel, which is just, you know, getting the debate going and seeing the work that people are making and kind of being inspired to go and make new things. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please subscribe.